Hello and welcome to Hot and Heavy, the Elaine podcast. I'm your host, Shivani Desai. Today I'll be talking about Season 6, Episode 16, The Kiss Hello. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well out there. I'm doing okay. I am a little uncomfortable right now. It's a long story and probably not at all interesting to any of you, unless you're podcasters and don't have like a good setup at home. I'm still recording from my closet, which I think does a good job with dampening, too much noise, and there's no echo in here because of all the clothes. So it's a good space in theory, but I have to sit on the floor, which isn't always comfortable. And I'm trying to figure out the setup to get my, microphone in the right spot and all of that stuff. I really would just love to be able to sit at a proper desk or table in a chair with a back. Anyway, the point is I tried a different setup today, and it mostly is rooted from the fact that I'm too lazy to reconnect my microphone to the stand that I usually have it connected to. Because I recorded in a hotel last week, I only brought this little mini tripod thing. Oh my gosh, I'm boring myself talking about this. I'm uncomfortable. That's all you need to know. I hope it doesn't come out in my voice during this episode, but you know what? If it does, just remember, I am uncomfortable. Other than that, I did not list anything for banter today. Nothing listed in my notes. So you know what that means. We're just going to get into the episode. All right, the synopsis for The Kiss Hello is as follows. Kramer puts up photos of everyone in his building to help them all become friends, but Jerry finds the familiarity unpleasant. He stops the women in the building from kissing him hello and becomes unpopular in the process. George tries to charge his physical therapist for canceling his appointment after she charges him for his previous cancellation. Elaine injures her shoulder when a friend makes her walk several blocks while carrying ski equipment. Jerry's Nana's memory loss leads to the disclosure of a financial secret Uncle Leo's been keeping for 53 years. This episode was written by Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld. We start out in Jerry's apartment. George is wondering about dating in Spain. Could you ask a woman to flamenco? Well, not on the first date, Jerry says. Jerry gets a phone call from his Nana. She needs him to come over and open a ketchup bottle. George is like, oh, wait, so we can't go to lunch? No, we have time. Jerry tells George that his Nana is slipping a little. She's having trouble distinguishing the past from the present. And George comes up with the idea, hey, they should make ketchup in a tube, like toothpaste. We continue onto the street, and they're still talking about this squeeze ketchup concept. Now, George has only seen squeeze mustard, not ketchup. Well, Jerry's like, well, that's crazy. That stands to reason that they make squeeze ketchup. They see Elaine down the street a little bit with her friend Wendy. She's a physical therapist. Jerry isn't too happy about that because of the Kiss Hello program he is on with her. He just kissed her hello once at her birthday party, and now it's every single time. George is down to one kiss hello, his Aunt Celia. Jerry says, oh, I really admire that. George is so flattered. He's like, I can't remember you saying you've admired me about anything. Not true, Jerry says. I've admired your hearing. I've told you that. No, don't slough it off. You have great hearing. Well, they all approach each other. Wendy, of course, kisses Jerry. George meets Wendy and starts asking about the swelling he has in his arm. She offers him her card for treatments that he can get, since apparently heat and ice on it is way too much work for him. She has to go. She says goodbye. Elaine says goodbye along with apologizing for George. And of course, she kisses Jerry on the way out. Elaine slaps George when she's gone. What did you do that for? What? Ask about your arm. She pinches that swollen arm area. The actress here who plays Wendy is Wendy Malick. Probably very recognizable. She's best known for Just Shoot Me, Dream On, and Hot in Cleveland. I love her performance in this episode. It's nothing overly comedic. I mean, her hair is the funniest thing about her. But Wendy Malick is a great actress and also so beautiful. So even this bad hairdo doesn't make her look that bad, in my opinion. But Yeah, it's funny. It's like Just Shoot Me was a really popular show. And I think I tried to watch it here and there, but I know she was hugely popular because of that show. It's interesting, those shows that were so popular during their time. And look, there's been some resurgence with streaming, like with Friends. And I think Cheers, oddly enough, got this really big young following because of it being on streaming. But I don't think Just Shoot Me has had that success. I mean, it was super popular in the day. Well, this concept reminds me of the show My Name is Earl. I don't know if I brought this up on the pod before, but like that show was so popular. I never watched it. It did not look appealing at all to me. Even though I love Jason Lee, I just was like, I have no interest in this. But people watched My Name is Earl. I believe Jason Lee like beat out a bunch of like really legit actors for the best actor in a comedy, like Emmy Awards or whatever, Golden Globe. But anyway, the point is, it was so hugely popular. It was on for a long time, for years. And I have yet to meet anyone who watched that show, or at least admitted to watching the show. Like, I don't know anyone who's like, oh my God, that reminds me of that My Name is Earl episode. Like, no one ever references it. And yet, for that pocket of time it was on, it was like the number one show. It's just fascinating to me. All right, back to the episode. My take on the scene, it's a great scene. I love how we get a couple of plots established here. Jerry's issue with her kissing hello, and then George with his arm issue and that he's going to go see her for treatment. Really clever to plant the seed about George's hearing here, because it comes up later. No surprise that this episode is really well written, considering Jerry and Larry wrote it. I think they are often the best writers on the show. I just love their style, and it just always feels like we're getting back to like the core of what we love about the show whenever an episode is written by them. And I also love in this scene how earnestly George is so flattered by Jerry's admiration for his hearing. He's like, you can see in his face. He's like, wow, oh my gosh, thanks, Jerry. Such wonderful face acting here by JLD. She is so annoyed when George brings up his arm to Wendy. And actually, I did not notice it until this rewatch, but when Elaine says bye to Wendy, like I mentioned, she also apologizes for George. It's so quick. She's like, bye, Wendy, sorry. Like she just kind of like motions over to him. Oh my God, it made me laugh so hard. And then Elaine pinching his arm is so perfect. I mean, George and Elaine interacting, it's always perfect, but especially when it's a little bit mean. All right, next we are at Monk's. Elaine is explaining to George that Wendy doesn't want to have to deal with medical questions when she's out of the office. Well, George goes off on how it's not proper to disturb these delicate geniuses outside the confines of an office. When there's huge sums of money involved, then the delicate genius can be disturbed. Elaine points out what I can only guess is a booger poking out of his nose. George, you have something right there. Jerry declares that was his last kiss hello with her. He's putting a stop to it. Why? And he says, outside of a sexual relationship, I don't really see the point. And then he brings up the hair. What is with that hair? Elaine agrees. Yeah, I know. It's not very flattering. Looks like something out of an old high school yearbook. He says, you should say something to her. Oh, she says, I could never say anything. Yeah, Kramer's the only one that could do that. But you can't tell him to do it. Otherwise, then he won't do it. If he just gets introduced to her, he'll probably bring it up on his own. And Elaine actually likes this idea. She just needs to create a situation for Wendy to meet Kramer. In walks Kramer. He tells Jerry that he needs a picture of him because he's putting up pictures in the lobby of their building so that everyone can know each other. Their names will be on it and, make everyone friendlier. Jerry does not like this idea at all. I don't want to be talking to everyone. I just want to nod and be on my way. Then Kramer looks at Elaine. You got your eyeliner smudged right there. Why do you wear so much eye makeup? Oh, yeah, Elaine says. This will work out just fine. My take on this scene, a really fun scene. Elaine continuing that admonishment of George and what he did, asking Wendy about his arm. Oh, it's so funny. And we have a great Jason Alexander scene here too. I love how upset he gets. And that term, delicate genius, is so fantastic. Again, just fantastic writing by Jerry and Larry. And this is such a Larry David thing. I've said this before, but having watched like every season of Curb and then going back and watching Seinfeld, you really can see the Larry David influence on the George character. I mean, everything George gets upset about, you're like, oh my God, this can be a Curb episode. And sometimes I do want to say they do almost recreate some of the George plots as Larry plots in Curb Your Enthusiasm. I can't think of one offhand right now, but like I've seen Curb episodes where I'm like, I feel like George went through this. And it's not exactly the same. It's of course, with now a lot of curse words on HBO, and also a little bit more heightened or whatever. But like the core is there, that same kind of foundation of whatever the issue is. I'm like, they did this on Seinfeld, but whatever. I forgive it because it is absolutely hilarious in either show. The delicate genius thing reminded me of something that happened to me. It wasn't with a doctor, but it was with this writing instructor that I had. So I took a workshop here in Denver with, it's called the Writing Workshop. And so they offer all these great different types of writing courses. And so I took a playwright workshop. And I really loved the woman teaching the course. She's like a noted playwright. She directs a lot of the theater in town. Really, really accomplished, very smart woman. And I just loved the notes she was giving me on my scripts and, the projects we were doing. And I remember, and this was probably my fault too, or it definitely was my fault. It was a faux pas, but I just didn't realize it. Anyway, let me just tell the story, then I'll get into it. But like during the last class, I raised my hand and I said, I've just really enjoyed your insights to my work. And would it be okay to keep emailing you about, as I progress? Because it wasn't like we were done with the scripts we were working on. This was just sort of, hey, bring in scripts you're working on. And this workshop will give you feedback from other playwrights and the instructor and all this stuff. So she kind of got a little awkward and she's like, well, this is where it gets complicated. I don't do that unless it's through, I get paid through this school. And I was like, oh, okay. So she's saying she ain't giving free advice, basically. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't even think about that. And she was very like, oh, no. It's just, this is my profession and teaching is part of it. And so I only do this when I'm getting paid is pretty much the message. So I felt really dumb, totally justified though. I get it. Like otherwise I'm sure she'd just get inundated with writers just being like, hey, can you read this for me? But anyway, I was like, oh, she's a delicate genius who won't be reading scripts and giving feedback unless she's in the confines of the school or a paid workshop. But anyway, that was my little related story. Back to the scene. I love how Elaine and Jerry are totally on the same page about Wendy's hair and how Kramer is the only one who could blurt out the truth. And it's so true. I mean, we've seen Kramer do it before, notably Mr. Oh, you just need a nose job. I mean, we know Kramer has the capability of doing this. Little thing, but I love how Elaine says, Kramer. So again, just a really well-written scene. That example, we get that. If you didn't already know how blunt Kramer can be, we have that really good moment at the end where he points out Elaine's eye makeup being smudged and asking her why she wears so much. It's a perfect way to justify their plan. And that's a really clever way to put it in there. I mean, let's just say someone doesn't really know the characters very well and they're watching this show maybe the first time or second or third. They're just not that familiar. We've heard about how Kramer's the perfect one to tell Wendy, but then to see it in action, that's just a really smart way to be like, hey, we'll clue in everyone. We're not going to assume everyone knows the Kramer character very well. So note for you writers out there. And I'm not even getting paid for it. All right, next we're in Nana's apartment. Leo is there and he's kind of yelling at his mom, again with the ketchup. Don't they have it in a squeeze bottle? Jerry is at the door and Leo lets him in with the big hello. Jerry tells him that Nana called him about the ketchup. Yeah, she called me too. Cutie little Nana comes over with the bottle and hands it to Jerry. And Leo tries to get a hold of it to open it and they sort of fight over it. Finally, Jerry relents and lets Leo have it. And then Nana says, they should let Buddy open it. And Leo says he lived next door to us 45 years ago. And then she mentions if Leo gave Helen the $50, says how their father won $1,000 at the track and he was supposed to give $50 to his sister. Ma, Dad died in 1962. Leo turns to Jerry saying, I don't owe your mother any money. But Jerry's very suspicious. Next, we're in Jerry's building. We have a quick scene with Jerry and Elaine in the lobby. Jerry is asking the super about fixing his shower. He has no hot water. And the super says, yeah, he'll get to it. And Jerry and Elaine get into the elevator. And then up in his apartment, we see Kramer rummaging around in Jerry's drawers. Jerry and Elaine enter and startle him. And he tries to cover, but then he finally admits, yes, he's looking for a picture of him for his picture wall. And Jerry says, forget it, Kramer. And Kramer's just trying to convince him, look, this is going to be so good for the building. I mean, you don't rob someone if you know their name. You're robbing me. Well, Kramer is determined to get his picture. He goes to exit, and Elaine stops him. She asks, well, can you come back in 5 minutes? What for? Nothing. Just want to see you again. Elaine gives him this big smile. Kramer is so flattered. He keeps kind of looking back at her as he's walking to his place. She shuts the door and says, yeah, Wendy's going to be here any second. Jerry's like, this is going to be an interesting experiment to see if Kramer says anything. Are you sure you want to go through with it? She says, Jerry, she never dates, and I know it's because of her hair. The phone rings, and it's Jerry's mother, Helen, and she's calling Jerry about Nana. And he says, yeah, I saw her the other day, and then asks her, hey, did you ever get $50 of Grandpa's track money that he won? And she doesn't know anything about it. And he says, yeah, Uncle Leo is supposed to do that because Nana thinks this just happened. All right, my take on this scene, it's not much to say here, mostly about Kramer needing Jerry's pick and the Nana stuff. But I do love the interaction between Elaine and Kramer. I mean, when she gives him that big smile, just want to see you again. Michael Richards is so funny. I mean, that reaction is perfect. It's like Kramer is flattered and confused, definitely wondering why. But I mean, so there's just like so much going on with his little shuffle to the door, just like his expression. He's sort of like, yeah, that's not surprising, but oh, you've never said that to me. It's very sweet. All right, next we have a quick scene in the Seinfeld's apartment down in Florida. Morty is deep into figuring out how much that $50 would be now with interest or different investment options. Helen is so annoyed. Even though he says it would be $663.45. Morty, will you stop? He's not getting away with this. All right, next we're back in Jerry's apartment. Wendy buzzes. Jerry is so excited. This will be my first opportunity to not kiss her hello. Elaine wonders, what is the big deal? And he says it's the obligation. Perhaps if touching a breast was part of it, then he could see it being a worthwhile thing. Elaine just adds to the ridiculousness. What about an intercourse hello? Are you into that? Oh, Elaine, now you're being ridiculous. Wendy knocks at the door. Jerry's like, wait a second. And he positions himself at the fridge and then tells her to open it. Well, Wendy comes in. She tries to get to Jerry, but his whole body is basically buried in the fridge. He greets her from in there and hands her a bottle of water. Comes out for a second, but then blocks her with the freezer door. And then she finally gives up. Once he sees the coast is clear, he gets out of his fridge and freezer. Wendy mentions how George came to see her, but then he canceled his appointment yesterday. Oh, yeah, Jerry said he had to take his mother to the chiropodist. Then we hear a door shut in the hallway. Oh, that must be Kramer, Elaine says. So Kramer enters. He takes a Polaroid of Jerry that Jerry was not at all prepared for. I told you I was going to get a picture of you. Jerry tries to get it from him, but Kramer blocks him. Fine, put my picture up. What do I care? Elaine introduces Kramer to Wendy. They shake hands and we see Kramer's eyes linger on her head. And then he says, I really like your hairdo. Oh, man. She says, oh, thank you. She's actually thinking about making a change. And Kramer says, no way. Elaine tries to butt in. Kramer, if she wants to change her hair, no, he says. You'd be a damn fool to change it. No one wears it like that. Then he tries to take a picture of her with his camera, but then, of course, can't figure it out. And he flashes in his face. My take on this scene, it's another great scene. Elaine doesn't get a lot to do here. Most of the comedy comes from the other characters. So those few seconds waiting for Kramer to say what he's going to say after he's introduced to Wendy is so perfect. It's so fantastic. And I love that shot of Elaine and Jerry, just that exhale of disappointment. It's so funny because we're all waiting and that pause is so well timed. Just kind of, then he's kind of Looking at her hair. What's he going to say? I also love how excited Elaine looks when Wendy says, she's thinking about making a change to her hair. Oh, you were, she's so excited by that. But then she just gets bulldozed by Kramer about how, she'd be out of her mind to change it. It's all done so well. I love that Kramer didn't do what they think he was going to do. All right, next we're in Wendy's car. Wendy asks about, who's that guy that came in? Oh, Kramer. Yeah, does he have a girlfriend? You want to date him? Oh, why not? Is there anything wrong with him? Then there's all this silence. Elaine? No, I'm just thinking about the question. It's a fun scene. Elaine gets the big laugh at the end and that look on her face, like she's really thinking about it. Like, I get it. It would be a complicated answer. Is there something wrong with Kramer? You can't really say there is, but I don't think you really want to set your friend up with them either. All right, next we're in Wendy's office. George is at the reception desk writing a check for his appointment, and his arm really feels better. Man, that Wendy is something. She is super, says the receptionist. Same time tomorrow? Yeah, George says and starts walking away. The receptionist stops him and tells him he actually owes $150. Said he had canceled less than 24 hours before his appointment, so he's still going to be charged for it. Well, George is not happy. Wendy comes out and asks if there's a problem. Are you aware that I'm being charged for Tuesday's appointment? I had to take my mother to the chiropodist. I'm sorry, that's our policy, Wendy says and exits. Oh, George says, the delicate genius has a policy. He's on his way out and the receptionist says, so we'll see you tomorrow? Well, it's less than 24 hours, so I guess I have to. The actress who plays the receptionist is writer Carol Leifer. Obviously, she's best known as a Seinfeld writer. She's a very accomplished writer and a stand-up comic, in fact. Oh my God, I think she's so wonderful as this receptionist. She's a bit of a scene stealer, if you ask me. The choices she makes with her speech pattern and the inflection and that little click thing she does with her mouth, so fun, so fun. I love Carol Leifer. All right, next we are in the building lobby. Jerry and Elaine walk in and the picture of him is so bad that Kramer took, and Jerry hates it. Well, it's not a beauty contest, Kramer says. There's a guy getting off the elevator, and he says a hearty, hi, Cosmo. Hey, Steve. Elaine tells Kramer, hey, my friend Wendy wants to go out with you. Oh, well, how do you do? A woman approaches and says hello to Jerry after she finds his picture, and then he looks at the wall. Oh, hello, Mary. She says how nice it is to finally know his name. Now they can talk to each other. Kramer is so excited. Isn't this nice? Jerry's not so enthusiastic. Then Mary asks for help with the package, and Jerry obliges. She thanks him and gives him a kiss on the cheek. Oh, he's so annoyed about that while walking out the door with her. The actress here who plays Mary is Rondi Reed. And she's worked in dozens of TV shows and films, most notably had a recurring role on Mike and Molly. She's also a very accomplished theater actress with a lot of credits and awards for her work in the Chicago theater scene. And I love her as Mary. I mean, when she yells at Jerry later in the episode, it's so intense and so hilarious. Like her voice gets kind of deep. It's really good. My take on this scene, there's not much to Elaine's part here, but I do like the scene. We see Kramer's plan in action, and the interaction between Mary and Jerry is the best, and that kiss at the end is so perfect. Next, we are in Jerry's apartment. Jerry and Elaine enter, and Jerry, of course, is still fuming about more kissing. Elaine can't help but laugh and giggle in his face. The phone rings. It's Jerry's mother. We hear Jerry say, he didn't. He couldn't. Turns out Uncle Leo put Nana in a home. Elaine asks why. Maybe to keep her quiet. My take on this scene, not much to say here, just some phenomenal laugh acting from JLD. And it's so on brand for Elaine. Of course, she'd love Jerry getting so mad about this because it's so ridiculous. Like, we know that she thinks it's so dumb. Like, just kiss hello. Who cares? And I don't know. There is something so funny about people getting annoyed. Like, I know my husband, like if I have a rant or something and I'm going off on something, he finds it very amusing, and vice versa. I mean, it depends on the thing, obviously. If it's something trivial, we usually find it really funny when the other gets so worked up about it. And then we usually punctuate it with a first world problems, because usually they are. All right, next we're back in the apartment lobby. Jerry is getting his mail, and a woman named Joan comes in and gives him a kiss hello and engages in some light conversation. How you doing? Pretty good. Just pretty good, not great. Okay, great. Are you happy? Oh, I'm delighted. Okay, have a nice day. Then when he's getting to the elevator, Louise comes off the elevator and gives Jerry a kiss hello. Hi, Jerry. Hi, Louise. The actresses here, the first actress, Joan, is played by Mary Shear, and she's appeared in a lot of shows. She was part of the original cast of Mad TV. That's where I recognize her from. She came up in The Groundlings, so that makes a lot of sense. She's also been in some kids shows called Bunked and iCarly. And this is just such a fun interaction with Jerry, and I think she's really funny. She plays that sort of annoying, chatty person with perfection, and they heighten how annoying this person is, right? Like, just good, not great. Like, who says that? Are you happy? Like, oh, so annoying and just so perfect to play against Jerry Seinfeld, because like he'd be like, why are you asking me this? I just told you I'm okay. The other actress in this scene who plays Louise is Wendy Worthington. A lot of Wendys in this episode. She's definitely made her rounds in many shows since the early 90s, and she's another accomplished theater actress. She toured with Wicked, in fact. And I think she's very sweet. She's the perfect Louise. All right, next we are in Jerry's apartment. Kramer enters after Jerry comes in, and Jerry just lays into him. He hates this whole picture wall thing. Thank you very much. He's like Richard Dawson down there. All these kiss hellos, the long, boring conversations. And Kramer's like, you should be thanking me for liberating you from your world of loneliness and isolation. You're part of a family now. Oh, you think I want another family? He talks about how his father wants Leo to pay interest on $50 from 1941, and Leo put his Nana in a home just to shut her up. He doesn't want another family. And also, Cosmo Kramer, or whatever you want to be called, he's done with the kissing. No more kissing. And then what does Kramer do? Of course, he grabs his face and gives him a big old smackaroonie, gives him a big old kiss. Just then, George opens Jerry's door and sees the kiss. He feels super awkward and leaves. Next, we're in Wendy's office. George enters for his appointment, and the receptionist tells him, oh, we were trying to get in touch with you. Wendy can't make her appointment. What do you mean? He says. Well, she had some personal business to attend to. We left you a message. You didn't get it. Oh, when did you leave it? A few hours ago. Oh, I'm sorry. I require 24 hours notice for a cancellation. As I see it, you owe me $75. Will that be cash or check? There's no Elaine in this scene, but if it's not an Elaine and George interaction, I will take a George and receptionist interaction any day. I love it. All right, next we're in Wendy's car. Wendy and Elaine are returning from skiing for the day. Wendy says she's really glad she took the day off. Hope her clients weren't too upset. The hell with them. And they both have a good laugh. Wendy pulls over, and Elaine's like, why are you pulling over here? I'm dropping you off. No, I'm 3 more blocks, she says. But Wendy doesn't want to go all the way to Elaine's door because it's all one-way streets. It'd be too inconvenient. But it's just 3 blocks. Yeah, that's Wendy's point too. Oh, all right. So Elaine gets out of the car, and then we see her on the street struggling to keep all of her ski equipment in her hands. At one point, she just throws her boots down and just kicks them along the road. My take on this scene, I like this little glimpse into Elaine having a female friend. You know, we know that goes by the wayside in a couple of seasons, having no female friends left. And in fact, we see this female friendship blow up at the end. But yeah, I just like that we get a little glimpse of this, like Elaine with another friend, not just with George, Kramer, and Jerry. But man, not a great friend. Super shitty of Wendy to drop Elaine off and make her carry her ski shit. And then that scene, that great physicality from JLD, just carrying all that equipment, and then the kicking the boots, like throwing it. You just see the frustration. It's done so well. And it's super relatable. I live in Colorado. I've been skiing. It's not my favorite. I do it for the fact that, hey, I really want our kids to be able to ski. They're growing up in Colorado. I think it's just part of the culture. It really is. So I go on these ski excursions with them so that, they become more comfortable on the mountain. I have no interest in improving my ski skills at all. I just want to be able to get down a green, maybe a blue, but I don't even see that in my future. But aside from all of that, the gear, I cannot stand the gear. Carrying skis, there's no comfortable way to do it. Unless, please, if you're out there and you have a comfortable way to carry skis, let me know. I've done it several different ways that have been recommended to me by the ski instructors or people who ski. They're like, oh no, if you put it over your shoulder like this, or just like carry them down like this. No, it sucks. Walking in ski boots, kill me for the entire time. It's awful. I never could really relate to Elaine right here until now, until I could, draw on my own experiences trying to carry around ski equipment. Done. I enjoy activities that don't require gear, like literally no gear, like maybe a yoga mat. I love yoga. I'll carry a mat. I don't care. I love to hike. I mean, shoes, that's all I need for hiking, maybe a water bottle. I'm a minimalist when it comes to my hobbies. All right, next we are on the street. Elaine is telling Jerry the absurdity of Wendy dropping her off 3 blocks from her apartment. It was like, I was a hitchhiker, and she said, this is as far as I can take you. Jerry points out if Elaine were a hitchhiker, she'd never get in a car with a woman with a hairdo like that. Elaine says she had to carry her skis, her boots, her poles, and she thinks she might have pinched a nerve in her shoulder. And Jerry's like, well, you should have Wendy work on it for you. Yeah, I gotta go. And Elaine walks away. My take, this is a really short scene, but I like the way Elaine is like relaying the story to Jerry. The hitchhiker comparison is so perfect. I do feel like it's more of like a Jerry line because it sounds almost like a little stand-up routine, but I do like that we hear it from Elaine. And I also love how Jerry takes another dig at her hairdo. There's no real reason to mention it in this response to her story, but it's just hilarious. Like all he sees in Wendy is the annoying kiss hello and her bad hair. I also wanted to comment on how oddly this scene ends. Like it's so abrupt and kind of weird. I definitely think it continued because you can see Jerry starting to say something as they cut to the next scene. But there's nothing in the extras. There wasn't any deleted scene for it. But yeah, it's always so weird. It's very abrupt. All right, next we're in the lobby. Jerry enters and heads to his mailbox. Mary comes in hot for another kiss hello. And Jerry sort of fends her off, says, look, I'm not doing it anymore. It's nothing personal. It just makes me a little uncomfortable. I'm sorry. And then Louise walks in, does the same thing. She goes to kiss Jerry. And he says, oh, I was just telling Mary how I'm no longer doing the kiss hello. So again, it's nothing personal. I just cannot do it. It's just I don't want to do it. And he's going on while the elevator door closes. His final line being, thanks for your cooperation. Okay, there's no Elaine in this scene, but I have to defend Jerry here. I think he handles this whole thing very well. Like, saying that kissing makes him uncomfortable is perfectly understandable. And so, for me, I think it's even a bit of a stretch that these ladies would be that upset about it. My completely useless idea to rewrite this, I mean, what the hell is the point of me even having this idea? But I'm just going to say it anyway. I think that this still would have worked back in the day, because I even think I remember watching this episode at the time being like, well, why would they be so mad about that? Like, it's legitimate to not want people to like kiss you. It's not, and it wasn't even like a gender thing. I was just like, no, I just think in general, some people don't like to be touched. Some people don't, that's not what they're comfortable with, and that's completely okay. So I feel like they could have handled this scene better rather than him just like politely declining their kiss. My idea, my rewrite idea, useless idea, would be that maybe they catch Jerry like wiping his face or making a grossed out expression. And that's what turns them against him. Like they catch him being grossed out by their kiss or something. That feels more authentic in a way. I mean, it's still funny as it is in the episode, but I guess I cannot help but think about this right now in the evolved 2023 way, with consent being a huge factor right now in human interaction. But like I said, I thought about it back then too in 1995. I'm like, I don't think that's weird. I'm like, I think these ladies come off just really annoying that they're like, what? We can't kiss you hello? How dare you? But anyway, it still could have worked if they just made Jerry kind of like wipe his face and look grossed out. If they caught him doing that, I would be insulted. I'd be like, geez, dude. First of all, I probably wouldn't do a kiss hello unless I was really close to the person. But anyway, my idea that will amount to nothing. All right, next we're in Jerry's apartment. Helen calls Jerry and he asks if Leo's going to pay. No, she says. He says we have no proof. Morty chimes in. We'll get him. He's a crook. Helen's still super annoyed with Morty, but she tells Jerry, I want you to go visit Nana in the home. And he agrees to that. Morty once again goes on and on about how much he could have had Leo pay based on different investment options and scenarios. And then there's a quick scene where you see Jerry leaving his place and Kramer kind of meets up with them, says, I'm going to visit my Nana in the nursing home. Then we see them down in the lobby. Jerry and Kramer get off the elevator and we find Jerry's photo has been defaced. Someone has drawn all over him, basically made him the devil and grade A pork. It's written on his forehead. Kramer's like, well, don't worry, buddy. I made double prints. A man walks in and greets Kramer. His name's Jack. And Jerry says, hi, Jack. And he just glares at Jerry and gets onto the elevator. The super comes out and Jerry asks, hey, can you get to my shower? Oh, I see how it is, he says. You're very friendly to people when you need something. Jerry's like, no, that's not true. Well, I think it is, he says. It's a big building, Seinfeld. Maybe I'll get to it someday. After I take care of the people who are civil to each other. And Jerry just glares at Kramer. This is his fault. Next, we're in the nursing home. Jerry is talking to one of the caretakers, tells her that, my Nana really doesn't belong here. And the nurse says, she seems quite happy. She met an old neighbor of hers. Buddy? Yes. Actually, he's right over there. The actress in this scene is Louisa Abernathy, and she plays the nurse. I found this very interesting. She has over 100 credits to her name and has appeared in just about everything. And of her 117 credits, 19 of those are her playing a nurse, including this episode of Seinfeld. There's something about Louisa that screams nurse, I suppose. I remember her best as Donna's mother in Parks and Rec. We meet her during Donna's wedding. She corrects Ben when he calls her Mrs. Meagle. I'm Grace Callahan. Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Callahan. Dr. Callahan. Also, I thought it was ironic that she appeared in the show ER twice, but she didn't play a nurse in ER. Ba 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 ba. Boom, ba-dum, boom, 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 boom. We have a Gilmore Girls Seinfeld connection with Louisa Abernathy. Now, Louisa didn't appear in the original Gilmore Girls series, but she did have a small role in the Netflix reboot Gilmore Girls: A Year in the Life. And she plays Headmaster Charleston's secretary, not a nurse. I think she's great in this episode of Seinfeld, very convincing as a nurse, as she should be. She's done it many times. All right, next we're in Wendy's office. Wendy is telling George, I don't owe you anything. She had some personal business. Oh, so your time is more valuable than mine. Is that it? You're a delicate genius. I love her reaction. A delicate genius? Elaine enters. George looks at her and says, good luck, on his way out of the office. Elaine tells Wendy that she injured her shoulder on Wednesday, because she had to walk carrying all of her equipment. Do you think you can give me some treatment? Oh, sure, Wendy says. You have insurance, right? You're charging me? George busts back into the office. Wednesday? That was your personal business? Oh, sure. Have people suffer while you're shushing all over a mountain. How could you have heard that? I hear everything, George says. Nice callback to Jerry's admiration for his hearing. And Wendy's had enough. Why don't you two just take your business elsewhere? That is a good idea, Elaine says. Come on, George, let's go. But before they walk out, Elaine stops to tell Wendy, you might want to do something about that hair. Why? What's wrong with my hair? It's a little old-fashioned, don't you think? She looks at the receptionist. Tell her. The receptionist looks at her and says, she's right. My take on this scene, such a great scene for so many reasons. We get to see a range from JLD here. I love that sort of passive-aggressive mention of her having to carry all of her stuff for 3 blocks and then politely asking her for treatment. And then that turn when she realizes Wendy's going to charge her, has the nerve to charge her. I love that. It's so great. You're charging me? And then, of course, the best part of the scene is Elaine and George teaming up together against Wendy. They both have the same energy, and it's just so delicious. When Elaine decides to dig in with the hair comment and that look on George's face, he's like so amused. He's like looking over, like laughing. I want that shot of the two of them, Elaine with bitchy face, George looking over his shoulder with amusement. I want that as a poster. It's so fabulous. It's like encompasses what's so great about the two of them. Oh, absolutely love that moment. All right, next we're back at the nursing home. Jerry is sitting with Buddy and getting the full story about what happened with the track, what his grandfather won. Buddy makes a point to talk about how obnoxious a little kid Leo was. He stole all his bottles for the deposits. So Leo shows up and Jerry's like, oh, look who I ran into. It's Buddy. You're busted. All right, next we're in the lobby. Jerry enters and tries to engage with everyone he sees, but they all give him the stink eye and the cold shoulder. He tries to give Mary a kiss even, but Mary just lets Jerry have it. Why don't you just do everyone a favor and just get out of this building? Nobody wants you here. Nobody. I love how her voice goes down. It's very forceful. She walks over to the two men at the mailboxes. They greet each other so friendly, kisses hello all around, and then they go out for coffee together. Jerry's sort of bummed. Then he asks Paul to hold the elevator door. No, he just lets it close. Then there's a tag to the episode. Jerry's at Kramer's door. He needs to use his shower because he has a date and still no hot water. Well, Kramer's like, well, I would, but I can't right now. Oh, is Wendy there? No. She changed her hairdo. It's terrible. We're done. No, he's having a party with all the people from the building. And of course, since they hate Jerry, you can't really go in. And then this hot girl shows up, gives Kramer a kiss hello. And Jerry's like, oh, man, really regrets his unfriendly behavior. All right, I'm going to take a quick break, and I will see you on the other side. Hello, how can I help you today? Please fill out these forms and bring them back. Just calling to confirm your appointment. Does this sound familiar? It does, doesn't it? That's because you've heard these phrases from the unsung heroes of every office, the receptionist. Hi, I'm Laurel Kiefer, best-selling author of Please Hold and host of Front Desk Diaries, the hit podcast that addresses all the issues facing modern receptionists. I've been a receptionist for over 35 years, so you can say I'm an expert when it comes to any situation a receptionist has to deal with. From stringent cancellation policies to confronting your boss. Whether you're a former, current, or aspiring receptionist, Front Desk Diaries is the podcast for you. But even if you aren't interested in the reception arts, you can learn a lot from this podcast. Understanding the receptionist community will make you think twice about being a total asshole to us. Listen to Front Desk Diaries wherever you find your podcasts. We also offer some super cute merch on our website, www.nowedon'tacceptchecks.desk. Front Desk Diaries, just confirming your appointment. And we're back. All right, in the notes about nothing, there was a few things I wanted to mention. So this is the 100th episode of Seinfeld. Now, it wasn't the 100th one to air. I believe it was like 103rd to air, but they count it as the 100th episode because it was the 100th episode produced. And it was for that reason that Jerry and Larry wrote this episode. One of the observations that I thought was really clever, and I didn't even think about it, but Kramer just last season ridiculed Elaine's name tag idea that she had when she was dating Lloyd Braun. And that idea would sort of achieve the same purpose as this photo wall in the building, friendly small town atmosphere. But so I thought that was interesting. Kramer hated the name tag idea, made big fun of it. But yeah, he's basically trying to do the same thing. He wants everyone to know everyone's name. Isn't it nice? I thought this was interesting. Brenda Strong auditioned for the role of Wendy, and she goes on actually to star as Sue Ellen Mischke, the Braless Wonder. So, everything happens for the best because I think she's great in that role. And lastly, I thought this was kind of funny. Carol Leifer, again, the receptionist, said that Jason Alexander would write something obscene or offensive on the check he hands to her. And take after take, it would just get more and more offensive and more obscene. Something I think you'd get in trouble for now. All right, now it's time for Greg's Sack Lunch. Greg is our most dedicated contributor to this podcast, and every week he sends us his sack lunch full of comments. So the first thing I find in Greg's sack are his favorite scene and Elaine moments. He says, the premise of the kiss hello I almost feel like is sort of dated. Or at the very least, it may be regional. Being from Michigan, I never kiss hello to even my closest female friends. However, living in New York City, I do see it a little bit more often, but it's usually older people doing it, older than me, and I'm starting to age out of being young. I feel like everyone just sort of hugs nowadays. Shivani, I need your input here as this topic has come up in real discussions in my life. Okay, I'll pause here and comment on this. No, I don't think I've ever had a kiss hello relationship with anyone. I agree with you, Greg. It's definitely more hugs. I mean, hugs as a greeting has been pretty common in my life since like high school. But I don't know. Like I am a very affectionate person. I do not mind like a human touch or I'm not one of those people that gets uncomfortable if someone like pats you on the back or touches you. Like I enjoy getting massages. Like I know people who just cannot stand to be touched. I don't want to make generalizations here, but for just in my experience, I have had kiss hellos with a lot of the gay men who I'm friends with. Like they will often give me a kiss on the cheek when I'm greeting them. I don't reciprocate, which I hope they're okay with. I enjoy it. I'm not against it. But yeah, I'm with you, Greg. This is not something I've experienced or ever did or really see too often. Interesting. That's interesting, though, that you see it more in New York City. I'm kind of like, let's bring it back. I kind of like the kiss hello. I think it's sweet. But again, I know that I'm comfortable with people with the touch. I don't mind it. So that makes me sound a little weird. But no, I think you guys know what I'm saying. All right, moving on with Greg's comments. He says, back to the episode, I love the scene where Elaine and Jerry get Kramer to come over just so he would comment on Wendy's yearbook hairdo. The moment when Elaine asks him to come back just because she wants to see him again and he gets all flattered and flustered. I love it. It's so sweet. And it brings to mind the fact that Elaine and Kramer, and George too for that matter, have never been anything more than platonic friends. It's never even remotely come up other than a passing joke flirtation. I love how Kramer reacts to Wendy's hair. That surprised little move he does when he sees her just cracks me up. Oh, absolutely, Greg. Oh my gosh. I talked about it. I love that moment too. Kramer's reaction when she's like, just want to see you again. And I like how she plays it as well. I guess you could definitely call it flirty, but it's not overt. But I think you could also say, oh, I just think it's a friend who wants to spend time with her other friends. I don't think it's something that's like, oh my God, she's so flirty with Kramer in that moment. But I can see it either way. And yeah, the reaction is so great. Look, I talk a lot about JLD's physicality and physical comedy skills, but obviously the master in this show is Michael Richards and just these little even subtle moments. And that's, once again, not to get on my high horse, why I preach about physical comedy. It's not easy. It doesn't have to be big pratfalls and over the top movements or anything. Something as subtle as what Michael Richards does in this moment, he just kind of like shifts around. Oh, absolutely brilliant. All right, next, Greg says, Elaine's absolute best moment and the best scene overall is when her and George team up against Wendy. When Elaine says, you might want to do something with that hair, and George laughs along. Pardon my language, but that is so fucking delicious. It's one of my favorite George Elaine moments ever. And Elaine's response is completely warranted. Who makes someone walk with skis and poles and all that crap Elaine had to lug? Also, why is George going to a physical therapist on a daily basis? It's not like he's learning how to walk again. I'll excuse it. The payoff of this scene makes this an all-time classic episode. Oh my gosh. I mean, you're completely echoing everything I think and say about that scene. Yes, it's fantastic. I mean, yeah, the two of them together. Like I said, I want that shot of them where George is laughing and she's like got her bitchy look on her face. I want that as a poster. It's so great. It just encompasses what we love about George and Elaine. All right, next in the sack is Greg's scene swap idea. He says, the storyline with Nana and Uncle Leo is just meh to me. I love these characters, but I feel like it was squeezed into this episode and maybe could have just been replaced with more of Wendy and Kramer. They make it seem like they're about to date and then nothing ever comes of it. It also would have been funny for this to happen and then George and Elaine are forced to see her again after they've told her off. I just want more of Team Benestanza. Oh my God, Greg, that is so good. Benestanza. Okay, we have a new term for the pod. Henceforth, Any George and Elaine scene together will be a Benestanza scene. Bravo. Bravo, Greg. Bravo. Um, I'm with you here about the Nana and Uncle Leo. I don't mind it, I guess. But I agree with you, though. It does seem a little bit like wedged in there. I would be curious to know if it was sort of plugged in at the last minute, because that wouldn't surprise me. It's definitely the one plot that doesn't like dovetail too much with everyone else's. And yeah, that's brilliant though. Like if if Kramer and Wendy, I would have liked to see more of that interaction and the dating. Because yeah, how fun. Benestanza scene with, yeah, I'm just hopping right in. It's part of the vernacular now. With Wendy after the telling off at her office. I mean, come on. That's brilliant. Once again, the useless efforts to rewrite things that will never come to fruition. But hey, you know what? There's something satisfying about it. Finally in the sack are Greg's extra thoughts. He says, one thing I find interesting in the discussion George and Jerry have about the availability of squeeze ketchup. I feel like Heinz had ketchup in squeeze bottles all the way back in the 80s, but maybe I'm remembering this wrong. Well, interesting you mention this, because on the IMDb page, for those of you who are familiar, there is a section, it's called Goofs. So it's like a whole section that will point out goofs that people have written in or whatever. So a goof in this episode is that Jerry claims there has to be squeeze ketchup. George has never seen it. Apparently, you can see a bottle of squeeze ketchup in Jerry's fridge when he's hiding from Wendy. So yeah, it's like a little bit of a goof in the episode. It's like, you guys, Jerry has one in his fridge. So you're right. Next, Greg says, I do want to address how great I think Wendy Malick is. She's almost always playing a character that is kind of obnoxious or full of herself, but she does it in such a subtle way, it's not like she's outwardly unlikable. I loved her on both Just Shoot Me and Hot in Cleveland, and even her role here on Seinfeld is great. Oh, so you watched Just Shoot Me. Love it, Greg. Like I said, I never really watched it, but yeah, super popular. I've only seen like clips of Hot in Cleveland. I feel like I might have to visit that show. Maybe that's the next podcast. But I've heard such great things about it. I mean, how can you go wrong with Betty White? I am a huge fan. But yeah, I'm totally with you on Wendy Malick. I think she's fantastic. And lastly, Greg says, I also have to acknowledge both Carol Leifer as the receptionist and Rondi Reed as Mary. Both great comic actresses. Carol is a perfect nemesis for George here, especially with the little mouth click she does. Yay! And Rondi was the only person on Melissa McCarthy's show, Mike and Molly, who cracked me up as much as Melissa herself did. Oh, wow. I love when she tells Jerry off at the end. Again, great casting of the guest stars. Wow. Okay. So, Greg, you are all over this episode and the shows people have been on. Great job. I never watched Mike and Molly. I'm a huge Melissa McCarthy fan, but that's so interesting that she was just as funny as Melissa McCarthy. Those are big shoes to fill. So maybe I have to watch Mike and Molly now, too. Hot in Cleveland, Mike and Molly. I'll still pass on Just Shoot Me. Thank you so much, Greg, for your thoughts. We love them every week. Thank you for sending them in. And now it's time to close Greg's sack. Lunch. All right, moving on to my favorite Elaine moments. Yeah, it's when she finally lets Wendy have it. I mean, that's a no-brainer. You may want to do something about that hair. Love a snotty Elaine. And a close second would just be that moment where she pinches George in that scene in the beginning. I love that like sister energy there. Asking her about your arm. She just pinches him. And Jason Alexander's reaction. He's like, ow. It's so funny. And my final notes for the episode. Such a fun episode. Everyone is involved in overlapping storylines, which is so great. And that's when the episodes work best. I mean, okay, Uncle Leo, Nana stuff, maybe not so much overlapping, but still, I don't mind it. But I definitely support what Greg says. If we could swap that out for more Wendy and Kramer stuff, yeah, in a heartbeat. Also, these are very simple premises too. And I think that's what makes Seinfeld work so well. That's when Seinfeld's at its best. When Jerry and Larry write together, they have that knack of making, such trivial, everyday things so funny. And I mean, obviously that's the crux of the show. It's a show about nothing. It's the relatable stuff we all go through in our boring lives. And they just elevate the conversations about those things. So like a kiss hello, maybe not for us Midwesterners like Greg and myself, but even though I couldn't relate to it, I appreciated that storyline so much. So yeah, I mean, those types of things when the premise is so simple, but they just build a comedy on top of it in a way that makes sense. That's what makes Jerry and Larry so brilliant. It's also interesting to me, and I'm finding this out as I'm rewatching the show, but when you can feel the Jerry and Larry coming through so strong when they write an episode. Look, there are so many great writers that wrote for Seinfeld, but those two, like I said, they bring us back to the foundational humor that set the show apart from the beginning. Now, Elaine's plot, specifically has to do with this friendship with her ugly hairdo friend. And I love that she's trying to help her friend out. I like that energy that Elaine has. It's like, we got to set up this Kramer thing. She doesn't date. She needs to date. And then the blow up at the end is great. Good for Elaine. Don't put up with this delicate genius charging you for the injury she caused because her lazy ass driving. Like, come on. So we see empowered Elaine. I like that. Our Elaine never settles. She stands up for herself. She doesn't give a shit. So I like that we get to see this side of Elaine. We see her empowered Elaine come out at the end, and I love it. And I think that's all I can say about the Kiss Hello. Please follow the podcast on social media. On Instagram, we are at Hot Heavy Elaine. On TikTok, at Elaine Bennis Podcast. And if you'd like to email me, please do at elainepodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.